Okay, guys, welcome back to computer science, and this is section 1, video 2, and we're going to be talking about variables today. And you're probably asking, well, Luke, what is a variable? That's a great question, and I get the whole video to describe it to you. Variables are really important when it comes to programming, because up until now, even though you're in a programming class, you've yet to actually touch any programs or any programming like language of any script or anything like that. So today you're going to make your first program slash script, do the same thing. And it's just going to define define a bunch of variables. Now you're probably wondering, well, what's a variable? And before we even go into Unity, basically what a variable is, actually before I even get into that part, the programming language we're programming in is JavaScript. And sometimes you hear me say programming, sometimes you hear me saying coding. It makes no difference. They both mean the same thing. But yeah, so we're gonna be coding in JavaScript. And if you ever heard of programming before, you might have heard JavaScript and Java. They're not the same thing. Java does not equate to JavaScript, and JavaScript definitely does not equate to Java. So never really think that the two are the same, because they're not. They're different. They're completely different entities, all on their own. But yes, let's go back to our topic on variables. Now you're probably asking, well, Luke, I've never programmed before, so I have no clue what a variable is. So basically, a variable is something that stores information, and there's 4 basic types. The first type is this here, which is Boolean. Booleans are, imagine just like a switch that says I'm on and I'm off. That's what a Boolean is. A Boolean basically is just I'm either on or I'm either off, which means I'm either true or I'm either false. That might not make a lot of sense to you now, or like what's the point of just holding yes or no answers in? But Booleans become increasingly important and are very good at simplifying like different things. So they basically just hold yes or no, on or off, true or false. And now we move on to our next basic variable type, which are integers, which you'll almost always see them described as ints. And basically what an integer is, if you have ever had a math class before, it's a whole number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, -1, -2. Those are all whole numbers. So those are all integers. What's not an integer is something like 1.1, 1.2, etc. Those are actually called floats. And floats are basically, they're numbers with decimals, which is very useful. And you might be wondering, well, why would we ever use integers if we have this nice thing that also has decimals? Well, in programming, sometimes you don't really need decimals if you ever want to do math. Like, sometimes you can get away with just using ints, which is actually better, because integers take up a lot less space when you're coding and will make your programs run a little bit faster. But and last thing, integers have this thing called integer rounding, where basically, let's say you try to you have 1. Well, if you try and save 1.1 as an integer, it's gonna round down to 1, which is useful when you're trying to get estimates. Alright, so moving on. Floats are numbers with decimals. Simple as that. You'll also see some people can actually put letters into floats, because they're not technically just numbers with decimals in them. Because you can have 1 can be a float value or an integer, but 1.1 can only be a float value, not an integer. Okay, so that's what floats are. They're numbers with decimals. Strings now. You might be wondering, well, what's a string? The other one sort of gave away their meaning. But a string is basically, it's a variable that holds words or text. So you see here, I have a string right here, and this string is holding right now words go here in between the these little signs. You'll see those become very important. I also have this thing called vector3. What a vector3 is we'll talk more about this later, but just know that it's a variable which holds a list of 3 float points, or floats. And right now I just have integers in them, but you can put floats in them. They can go out a bunch of decimal places. And that's what a vector3 is. We're gonna be using those more to do some more interesting stuff. Okay, so now let's open up Unity, because we talked about these programming language things and all these variables. Let's actually make some now. Now I'm gonna create another game object because I don't really have enough right now. So I'm just gonna create a little cube right here. Let's say we move it right around there and move it about to there. So have something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. You can move stuff around. You can be creative. And what we got to do is we need to make a script to basically put our program and define these variables and what we're going to use them for. This is easily done by you click Add Component right here, and you go to New Script. It's going to lead you to this little file right here, and it's going to ask you to name it. Let's just call this one variables, and I do a little naming convention. You'll understand as you go on why I put things the way they are, like with capital V instead of just lowercase and whatever. But basically, just name it. I wouldn't suggest putting I can't put %, because that's not allowed. So I'm just gonna put var, because that's the shortening of variables. So let's create and add that, and you'll see it's right here in the inspector now. I have this var script here, and this variable script doesn't really do much yet because we haven't programmed it to do anything. Now you can open your variable script by double clicking here, or you see it just lit up here. You can also click it here. I'm going to open it from the inspector, and it's going to open this thing called MonoDevelop. MonoDevelop is it's the program we use to write our code in, so that it will make it MonoDevelop is the program we use to write code in. Simple as that. No need to get complex. Okay, so you're gonna see all these things in. Don't worry about function, start, or whatever these are, and just delete those. You can leave pragma strict. I could tell you what pragma strict is, but just leave it. You don't really need to know what it is. Okay, so ready? We're gonna do our first thing. We're gonna make a variable, and in fact we're gonna make a Boolean type variable. So it only has true or false in it. So how you do this is you'd write var, which means variable. Give it a name. We'll call this on off, and that's our variable name. And then we're going to do a colon and type in Boolean. And then end every single line in program and every time you make a variable, you have to end it in a semicolon. And this is almost every single line in programming ends with semicolons in JavaScript. There's a few exceptions, which I'll go over, but for the most part, end in a semicolon. And, well, we have this here, but let's start off by giving it a value, because right now it has no value. Its value is null. It's neither on nor off. So, whoa. I'm sorry about that. So now it's neither on nor off. So let's set it, and you can do this by clicking equals, and we'll set it to true. And you can tell you have variable types because they'll turn blue like this. This is when I typed in Boolean, it turned blue. So that means that's a variable type that we can use. And when I typed in true is a keyword, so that will also turn blue. Same with variable here and true. They're both keywords. That's why they're blue. But Boolean is blue because it's a type of variable that we can set. Okay. So we made our Boolean, but let's make a few more. Let's make an integer, and we'll call this just whole number. So we call it whole number, and we're going to set it as the type of int, and just end it with a separate these two with a colon, and we'll make this equal to 5. Now let's keep setting them. If you take a wild guess, we're going to set a float this time, and if you're guessing anything, it's actually just variable, and we'll call it a decimal number, and we're just going to call it with a colon to so we have the colon, and we're just going to say float and turn blue, so we made a float number. And let's just set it to 5.4. And then finally, last but not least, let's make a string, and we'll just call this simply by words, and it's going to be of the variable type string. String's a little funky. String uses a capital instead of lowercase. It's there for a reason. And if we just put I don't know, my name is Luke, and then it just corrected it. Is Luke. Okay, and then end it. Now, unlike any other variable type right now, string has these colons. You need to have not the colons. It has quotation marks. So if you were going to quote someone. So this is quoting whatever this person said. It's quoting, my name is Luke. If you don't have these quotations, you'll see everything turns this yellow color, and that means that you're going to get an error, and it's not going to be a fun day. So just quotes. Just remember them. Very simple. And now I'm going to click Control S to save this script. Make sure you're always saving, because sometimes if you forget to save, you'll try and fix errors that aren't there, which will be very annoying. So just let's save it, and let's go back to the editor. If you look down here, you'll see there's a little rotatey thing there, and that's just saying it's compiling. And so now we have this script, and it's on our cube right here. But look here. Now we have a bunch of different things we can set. You see how position sometimes moves the object? Well, not sometimes. Position always moves the object. And you see, but now we have these things here. They weren't here before. On, off. And you're probably wondering, well, what do these do? Well, they actually don't do anything right now, because we never programmed them to do stuff. But we can make them do stuff, which we're going to do a little bit later. But this is the basics. And if you click numbers like these, any number value, you can click the variable name and drag with your mouse to switch the numbers, which is really nice if you want to fine tune it, or just get a quick broad look instead of just having to type in 6.2 or 8. So yeah, and then here's words. You can't use it you can't drag it to switch the value, but you can change it. Say it's now we just want it to be Luke. And the cool thing about this is, you see, I clicked on my cube. Here's the variable. But if we click off our object, say we want to click something let's click this, and we have this right here. So now it's this platform we have clicked. We can actually add that script here, so we don't have to keep rewriting. We can start reusing things, which is really nice. And you'll see that it doesn't have the same values as the original cube. So as this cube has these set values with 8, 6.2, and Luke, this one has the original ones you programmed in, which is very useful because you don't want everything to be the same in your game. So that's basically it on variables. I'm going to save this scene by clicking Control S, and it's going to save, and I should be able to exit, and there we go. Okay, and you can also exit monodevelop, because that's the end of this video. So I'll see you guys next time.